What's up, everybody? Welcome to the 4040 Vision podcast. I'm your host, Khaled Abdallah, and I'm joined today by a special guest, the man, the myth, the legend himself, Ciuz. What's up, baby? How you doing?
What's going on, man? It's good to be on the pod.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Excited. It's going to be a great football season.
Yeah, man. So me and Ciuz used to be on the Standing on the Sideline pod together. Now working on some other things, and Ciuz is here to talk about the best and worst case scenarios for each AFC team coming up on the NFL season. Hopefully, by the time you're listening to this, we're kicking off the Thursday night game between the Chiefs and Lions. But hopefully, you listen to it, a little bit after that too. So the format is simple. We're going to go through each division in the AFC, each team. We're going to talk about some of the best and worst case scenarios for each team. And Ciuz is going to tell me which one he thinks is more likely. We'll try to keep it realistic. We're not going to be talking about, what if Josh Allen, I don't know, gets hit by a bus or something, and that's the worst case scenario for the Bills. Like I said, we'll try to keep it realistic. So we'll start with the AFC East. I can see, or maybe you can see Ciuz wearing his Wayne Chrebet New York Jets jersey. So we're going to start in his division. And the way we're going to go through the order is by projected win total. So their win over under. So I know, again, he is a Jets fan, but we'll start with the Buffalo Bills, who are projected to win anywhere between 10 to 12 games. I think their over under is 10.5. I know these are fluid. But the best case scenario for the Bills is a Super Bowl. They have the offensive talent, they have the defensive talent on paper, and they win the Super Bowl. The worst case scenario is that their defense takes a step back after losing Leslie Frazier, after losing a couple of key pieces there. They don't have the talent on offense to hold up, and it ends up being the Chiefs or the Bengals in the Super Bowl for the AFC. So, Kuz, which of those two scenarios do you think is more likely?
Well, they're definitely not winning the AFC East. I can tell you that much. That's coming home to the Jets. That's what's going on. But I think the Bills probably finish around like 11-6, maybe 12-5 on a good day. They would have to beat the Jets one of those times, I guess. But I think the worst case scenario is that Stephon Diggs situation and maybe Josh Allen actually regressing as a quarterback. Because hey, man, I've been banging the drum for years. Everybody called me crazy, but the Bills are frauds. And honestly, if Josh Allen didn't run as well, didn't have Stephon Diggs, he'd be a bust right now, and people would be talking about him like Sam Darnold. So um, I think best case scenario for them is like the AFC East is so good this year. I promise you, the AFC East is putting three teams in the playoffs. That's my theory. That's my prediction. Like it's arguably the toughest division in football. But I think the worst case scenario for the Bills would that Josh Allen regresses and he looks like the fraud that I know that he is. And just the Bills doing Bills things and blowing it.
Yeah, I don't think
I
that's
think
too
best case
bold of
scenario,
a.
obviously, like you said,
Mhm.
make the Super Bowl and win a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
That's obviously the best case scenario. But
Mhm. Yeah, they've been one of the favorites past few years. I mean, it's not that bold of a statement to say that it is the best division in football. I mean, there's a couple contenders for that. Maybe the AFC North, maybe NFC. No, nothing in the NFC now. So it's between the AFC East and AFC North. So yeah, it could be either one. I mean, you go down the
yeah,
list.
AC North too, yeah, because yeah,
Mhm.
man, especially now that Deshaun Watson's playing a full season.
Yeah, so we'll get to them for sure. The Browns. Yeah, I mean, I think
Yeah, that's
it's
later on, but yeah.
it's probably. I mean, it's more likely, I think, that they continue. I think it depends on how you feel about Josh Allen. I think they'll still be a playoff contender. They'll still be a Super Bowl contender. I feel like he's an automatic, 10, 11 wins. And then it just depends on that defense. There's some concerns there. So I think the more likely is the best case scenario, which is at least an AFC Championship Super Bowl appearance. If I had to, pick, I'd pick one of those two. So next up is your New York Jets. So their over under is 9.5. Best case scenario,
Slam the over.
slam the over.
Slam the
I mean,
over.
if you're watching Hard Knocks, you're drinking the Kool Aid, which I did. So their best case scenario is Aaron Rodgers finds the fountain of youth. He connects with Garrett Wilson. They have a stable of running backs. They have a bunch of weapons all over the field. Their offensive line holds up. They win the AFC East. Their defense, which was, I think, a top five unit last year, continues in that direction. They destroy all opposing quarterbacks.
Fourth.
fourth, there you go, and rampage their way to the Super Bowl. The worst case scenario is Aaron Rodgers is 40 years old and he plays like a 40-year-old quarterback. Their defense is, just as good as it was last year, which I think is, defense. There's not much variance. If you're good, you're good because they have a bunch of talent there. But the worst case is that their offense just doesn't keep up. Aaron Rodgers gets hurt because their offensive line doesn't hold up, and they end up, kind of a middling team just like last year. So I don't even think I need to ask, but which one do you think is more likely here?
Man, so my overall thing with the Jets, it's Super Bowl or bust, man. So best case scenario is obviously winning the Super Bowl. But we're all in. We signed Dalvin Cook, we traded for Aaron Rodgers. Like we got a fucking squad. Um, I think everybody sees the return of the New York Sack Exchange, maybe 2.0. Maybe we'll come up with a different name for them. Um, So I'm not even gonna lie to everybody. When the Jets drafted Will McDonald, I didn't know who the fuck this guy was. I've never heard of him, but I watched tape on him, man. And like after seeing him in the preseason, he's giving me young Von Miller vibes. And I know that's like a big name to throw around there, but like you could see it. Like he's got the speed, he's got the moves, and that spin move, man. That spin move like it gives me flashbacks to Dwight Freeney, but like at like a very slim size. You know what I mean? That's crazy. And he's there, and Jermaine Johnson, he's gonna be a problem all fucking season. You already know about Sauce, DJ Reed. But absolutely, I think the worst case scenario is that injuries, man, and our O line. If injuries happen and O line starts to go, then A Rod's probably next to go because he ain't being protected and he's about to get mopped up. But I'm gonna go ahead and make a bold prediction. I think Monday Night Football, first game of the season, the Jets punch the NFL in the mouth as well as the Bills, and I think we mop the Bills on Monday Night Football. And fun fact, four of the Jets' first six games this season are against playoff teams from 2022. So
Yeah.
I wanted
So
all the
they
smoke, and I'm getting it, and I'm ready for it.
so they actually
I
have. I
want to
mean,
beat the best at the best. It's unfortunate Von Miller's not playing.
I know that's your always your go to. You got to beat the best to be the best. So they're in terms of strength of schedule, they're 25th. So they're don't have too tough of a schedule. Or, I'm sorry, they have a very tough schedule. Like you said, the first four
Yeah,
teams
I'm
are
about to say we play everybody.
yeah. So it's not even a first
Yeah,
place schedule, but your
we
your
play all the good
team,
teams.
you got a couple playoff teams in your division. You got a couple other big games on the schedule. A few primetime games as well. So they do have one of the toughest schedules. I'm sorry, I misread that list. So it's not going to be easy, but I have faith in Aaron Rodgers. I know even if the line isn't great, I think he's so smart that he's going to take advantage of whatever the defense gives him. And I think that alone is enough to propel this team, right? Like if you're talking about Zach Wilson, Mike White, whatever, like these guys are just not they're not there yet in terms of their football
Man,
understanding.
we won 7 games.
Yes.
Yeah, we won 7 games with four separate mediocre
Mm-hmm.
quarterbacks. If we
Exactly.
had
And
even an average quarterback last season, we sweep the division. Like they're not touching us.
yeah, so that's the thing is Aaron
Like I think
Rodgers.
we split the division. Yeah,
Mhm. Yeah, Aaron Rodgers doesn't need to
it's
be
him. It's
MVP
a Super Bowl
Rodgers.
bust, and it's yeah. He could be half the quarterback he was, and it's gonna like it will be good enough for us
Hmm.
with
Yeah,
this
especially
defense
with that
and
with
like
that
these
defense.
weapons.
So
Like
for
man,
sure,
and
for
Brees
sure.
Hall and Dalvin Cook are starting week 1, bro. Man, lightning and thunder.
That's the stable right there. So yeah, I'm leaning that they. I don't know if I quite see them overtaking the Bills,
Oh,
but I do
my
think it's
prediction is a
almost a
13
lock
and 4
that they'll
finish by
make
the
the
Jets.
13-4. Okay, all right.
Oh,
Why not?
that's and we're winning division. And we're winning
Okay,
division.
all right.
That's my
So the
bold
next team.
prediction.
Yeah, that's why you're here for the bold predictions. Next team is the Miami Dolphins.
Mm.
Their over under is also 9.5. The best case scenario is that this offense picks up where it left off with Tua and Waddle and Hill and all these weapons they have. Raheem Mostert, like doesn't even matter who's playing running back for them. With Mike McDaniel drawing things up. The worst case scenario is it's all on Tua, right? I mean, if Tua doesn't hold up, we saw what happened to him last year. Their defense was pretty good last year, not the best. They were better at home than on the road. So it's kind of a mixed bag, but I think the biggest thing, of course, is Tua, and I mean they did bring in Mike White, so they have a decent backup this year. But what do you think is the more likely scenario here?
I don't know about decent, but he's serviceable.
It's good
I don't know
enough.
about decent, but he's serviceable. He's all right. He's got swagger to him, but he's everybody hypes him up more than he is. He's an interception machine. Um, I honestly, dude, if it wasn't for Tua's injury history and his concussion history, man, like this would be like a no doubter for me. Like they're definitely making the playoffs, and like best case scenario, they play the Jets in the AFC Championship game, like or whatever. But this team hinges on Tua because Mike White's. I don't care what nobody said. Mike White will like make shit interesting, but he's not gonna win you games. He's proven that. He's not gonna win you games. He maybe win your game or two, maybe have like he'll ball out for a game or two, maybe pull a little Nick Foles, and then that's it, bro. You know what I mean? They should have kept Teddy Two Gloves, in my opinion. Teddy Two Gloves with these weapons would have been nice. But yeah, this is one team that like solely relies on Tua at this point. Because if Tua is healthy, man, the sky's the limit for that team and those weapons. Like
Hmm.
that's what it comes down to. There's really no other like debate. There's really no other conversation to have. It comes down to Tua and how healthy he can stay.
Do you think he stays healthy this year?
Man, I hope he does, but I hope he misses some games. But just not the games versus us, because I want to
Okay.
play him. I don't want to hear
All right.
Dolphins fans talk about, oh, you beat us because Tua wasn't playing. Like, nah, we're going to give you the business this year, fellas.
Yeah, and Kuz is in Florida, so I'm sure he gets a lot of stick from Dolphins fans. So next up are the New England
Mm-hmm.
Patriots. So their current over under is around 7.5.
My
So
favorite. This
they're
is my.
I know you're gearing up for this one. The best case scenario is that last year was an aberration for Mac Jones, and he finally has a competent offensive coordinator. He doesn't have the best weapons, but this offense is good enough with Ramondre Stevenson and some of these other young receivers that they've picked up in the last few years. Their defense is always going to be at least good with Bill Belichick running the show, and they got a ton of talent in the defensive backfield. They have a game breaker, Matthew Judon. So I think the best case scenario is that they make noise in this division. They get a wild card spot, and then who knows what's going to happen in the playoffs. The worst case scenario is Mac Jones is who people thought he was last year. He keeps regressing. He doesn't hold up. And I think the defense, again, the worst case is they're going to be at least like a top 10, top 15 unit just because of Bill Belichick and the talent they have there. But again, the worst case is that their offense can't keep up with their defense yet again, and they finish last in the division. Which do you think is more likely? I'm pretty sure I know which way you're leaning here.
So here's my thing, right? Like Mac Jones is my guy, but I already said as long as he's on the Patriots, I hope he fucking like sucks ass, whatever. So far it's been going good. But didn't the Patriots hire Bill O'Brien as offensive coordinator?
They
Or
did,
am I
and he's a
bugging?
good offensive mind. Yeah,
Yeah, okay. And I'm pretty sure he was our offensive coordinator when Mac Jones was at college his last year. So there is some
mm-hmm.
familiarity with each other there. But it's time, ladies and gentlemen. The New England Patriots are about to be bottom dwellers, and this is the moment we've all been waiting for. I think the best case scenario is that I think the only case scenario is that they're gonna suck ass and maybe ruin somebody's day late in the season and fuck up their playoff chances. But I think that's their ceiling. I do think Mac Jones will look a lot better this year. But I still think they're going to be bottom dwellers because they got rid of Jacoby Myers. They signed Juju Smith-Schuster, who's I don't know who tweeted it. I was tired of this shit this morning, but somebody said his knee is like it could explode at any moment.
It was
You know what I
Albert
mean? And
Breer.
on top of it, even without the knee, yeah, is he legit? I don't fucking know. Yeah.
Yeah, he's
So,
a
but even
legit
at that
NFL
point,
guy.
even before the injury, yeah, even before the like the injury comment, it's like you essentially gave the same money that Jacoby Myers like signed for. So it's like why wouldn't you just give him to the homegrown guy? You know what I mean? I think it's starting to look like Bill Belichick is a fraud, and he was only as good as Brady made him. So I man, it's time. This is like I said, this is the moment we've all been waiting for. Patriots are going to be bottom dwellers of the league, and it's just their time, man. It's their time. It's their time to suffer, and we're all
Yeah.
gonna love it.
My face is melting from the hot take of Bill Belichick being a fraud. He's definitely not, but I can
He ain't
see
done shit since Brady left,
he's been like 500.
except beat up on the
Yeah.
Jets, but that doesn't
I
say
mean,
much.
it's he's been like 500 with some pretty bad quarterbacks. So I give him credit for that. Before we move
Yeah.
on to the AFC North, give me your order for the AFC East.
All right. Well, you already know. I said the Jets are gonna win the AFC East. I'm gonna put the Bills in second, just because man, as much as like I hate two on the Dolphins, and I still want to see him healthy and like play competent football. I just can't trust him to stay healthy at this point. So I'll put them in third place, and then bottom dwellers, fourth place, Patriots.
Yeah, it works for me. So now we'll move on to the AFC North. I think this is, aside from the AFC East, like we said, probably a contender for the best division in the NFL. I think it's going to be one of the hardest divisions to predict because everyone looks good on paper. So we'll start with the leaders in terms of over under, and that's the Cincinnati Bengals. They're currently projected to win about 11 and a half games, or that's their over under. Best case scenario, their offense picks up where they left off with Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, just a ton of talent all over the field. Their defense was excellent last year. They continue to be excellent. I know they lost some key pieces, but that's the best case scenario. The worst case scenario is Joe Burrow's injury is more serious than they're letting on. That calf strain he suffered during training camp, and their defense regresses a little bit after losing Jesse Bates and some other key pieces. Which do you think is more likely here?
Man, so the Bengals are a team. I mean, they're already a team to watch, but they're like really a team to watch now because did they not go out and get Orlando Brown? He signed with them. He
They
actually
did,
took
yeah,
less
left
money to
tackle.
sign with them.
Hmm.
Yeah, he took less money to sign with them over like signing with the Jets. Granted, it is because Aaron Rodgers wasn't a Jet yet, and he probably would have signed here. But like, I get it. You know what I'm saying? You can't go for the possibility. You got to go for the sure thing. And it's Joey B, man. It's like you know what I'm saying. Who doesn't want to play with that guy? He just leaves it all out there every Sunday, and like now you're getting him protection. Got the Jamar Chase, Tyler Boyd, T Higgins. Tyler Boyd probably could be a wide receiver too on any other team. T Higgins could be another number one on any other team. Like they got a good squad. I think their worst case scenario is like you said, their defense regresses after losing Jesse Bates, but I think they're still going to be a problem no matter what, and I think they'll still make a decent playoff run. They could
Hmm.
they could go all the way. Joey B is that guy, bro. He's such a fucking dog.
Yeah, I mean, my concern is just that injury. It seems more serious. As of this recording, I don't think they have committed to him starting week one. So I think they might start off a little bit slow. If it was up to me, I would sit him for a couple weeks, let him get rested up, unless of course the injury is not that serious. But I do think on paper, they have an incredible team, incredible talent. So I think it is probably the most likely scenario that they win this division. Next are the Baltimore Ravens. So actually, all three of these teams, according to the list that I found, all have the same over under. So the Ravens, the over under is 8.5 wins. The best case scenario is this offense, becomes great with a new offense coordinator, a new stable of receivers. They're okay at running back. We'll see if J.K. Dobbins can stay healthy, and of course, Lamar Jackson is the engine that makes everything go, and he's the quarterback that a lot of his fans think he is. Their defense right now is suspect, but so the best case scenario is their offense is good enough to make up for that. Worst case is all these receivers get hurt, Odell Beckham, etc., Nelson Aguilar. All these guys are kind of injury prone, especially Odell, past couple years, and their defense is just not good enough to stop any of these other teams, and they end up in the bottom of the division. So, which do you think is more likely?
Man, so yeah, I think their offense is like very, very like talented. They got a very this offseason they infused it with a lot of young talent, and then like they added Odell to it. I really like that wide receiver. They drafted Zay Flowers. I think he's going to be a stud for them. J.K. Dobbins, if he can stay healthy, he's always a problem. But so is Gus Edwards when they split the backfield, and Lamar Jackson. It's like having three running backs on the field, but also Lamar Jackson doubles as a quarterback. So it's like you can feel an extra weapon with both. I think ultimately, worst case scenario for the Ravens is that similar to what happened last year, and that their O line gets hurt and becomes depleted. Because man, if you can keep Lamar upright, he's a problem, and he's hard to stop. I think best case scenario is the line holds up and Lamar has a magical season, and it's man, playoffs are so far away, but like just
Mhm.
imagining like the potential teams and like the talent that could be in there. These playoffs are gonna be crazy,
Yeah,
especially in the
and
AFC.
they
I don't know about I can't vouch for the
mhm.
NFC, but especially in the AFC, like it's gonna be tough. Like it's gonna be a dogfight to get to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, the AFC
No matter who
is an
you face, it's
absolute
gonna be a
bloodbath.
dogfight. You're gonna have to go through the
Mhm.
fucking muck. You're gonna have to go through the fucking muck to get to the Super Bowl in the AFC.
Yeah, I think if you're picking like your top 10 quarterbacks, I think one is from the NFC, and Jalen Hurts. So like most of the talent is on the AFC side. So I think I don't think their defense is good enough this year. They're okay. Like they don't really have any blue chippers aside from Roquan Smith. Everyone else, there's a lot of question marks around them. Their defensive backfield is iffy. I like Rock Ya-Sin. He was on the Raiders last year. He's decent. I don't think he's a above. He's slightly
Yeah, he's
above
nice.
average.
He's nice.
You know,
Is Marlon Humphrey still hurt?
he is. Yeah,
Is
they did
Marlon
sign
Humphrey still
Jadeveon
hurt?
Clowney. Yeah, Humphrey's
That's
still hurt. They did sign
yeah, but
Clowney,
I mean that
who's
doesn't do nothing for you in
okay.
coverage.
Yeah, exactly.
He's
So
his best days are behind him. He's more of
yeah,
like a mercenary at this point. He gets in there, does his thing, he's out. Um, but yeah, dude, man, Marlon Humphrey is a huge loss for that defense. Huge loss.
mhm. Yeah. So it's arguable they have the best coach in the division. I know Mike Tomlin's great. So, but one of the best coaches in the NFL. We'll say that they almost won a playoff game with what's his name, Tyler Huntley at quarterback. So I never count out the Ravens. So I would throw them in the mix in the wild card. But I don't see a clear path to them winning the division unless, of course, Joe Burrow is hurt. So next, the Cleveland Browns. So
Yeah,
as I said, all of these teams have the same over under. Again, with the list that I found, I know there's some variance of 8.5. Best case scenario, Deshaun Watson is the Deshaun Watson of a few years ago. Pre massage scandal, whatever you want to call it. They have weapons everywhere at every level. They have maybe the best running back in the league. They have a good receiver group, and their defense looks great on paper. Worst case scenario is Deshaun Watson is who he was last year. And worst case is that they're the Browns and they always fall short of expectations. Which of these two do you think is more likely?
man, I like. It's like kind of tough to speak of Deshaun Watson last season. You know what I'm saying? Because he did some foul shit. But like, I think last year was a fluke. I think he was just rusty. He suspended like 12 games or something like that. Maybe it was 16. I don't know. He was
I think it
suspended for
was
quite
seven
some
or eight.
time, and he didn't go to camp. Yeah, and he didn't go to camp. And before that, he was holding out with the Texans. So I chalk that up to that. But I think with a full season, a full camp, man, like you said, this team's got talent. They can create problems. They got Amari Cooper. They traded for Elijah Moore. They got Nick Chubb. I think Kareem Hunt is a free agent now. They still got Miles Garrett. Like they got a squad, man, and this like that's another division. It's gonna be a dogfight. Well, outside of Pittsburgh, but they'll probably play like, and we'll get to that next. I'll
Yeah, they
spill all the
have.
beans right now, but yeah, I think best case scenario for them is that it was they get the Deshaun Watson before pre-injury and touching himself, whatever you get it. Worst case
Yes,
scenario is they're the Browns. It just happens. That's just what they are. That's just who they are.
Deshaun Watson and the offense and all that. I think they just have a ton of talent on defense that we didn't even talk about. I mean, they're stacked at every level. So I mean, we talked about it a few times. This division, this conference is going to be a bloodbath. I think it's going to be probably the hardest one to predict. At least with the AFC East, you can kind of pencil in the Patriots at fourth, but I think the North is
Yeah.
all mixed up. So yeah, I'm leaning towards they're also pushing for a wild card spot. I think I put them in like that 9 to 11 win range. I know that's a big range, but I think they're going to miss out on the playoffs just because of all the other teams that are out there. I don't know if I trust their coach, especially in this division. They probably have the worst coach of the four. So, yeah, I'm a little iffy on that. But next up are the Steelers. So their over unders also, like I said, 8.5. Best case scenario is Kenny Pickett takes a leap. They take advantage of the weapons they have. They always draft good receivers. George Pickens becomes, one of the best receivers in the league. Najee Harris comes up big. Pat Freiermuth, one of the best tight ends in the league, and their defense is almost always good. They also have playmakers all over that defense. TJ Watt continues to be, a destructive force. The worst case scenario is, Kenny Pickett does not take that leap, and he's still okay, still kind of mediocre. And they continue to be a mediocre type team. I think the Steelers, the last time they finished last in the division was in 1988. It's just something they don't do. So if they do finish last in this division, it'll be quite the achievement for them. So I don't think you're too high on the Steelers, but what do you think is the more likely scenario?
All right, but before I get into what I'm about to say, before I forget to ask, if the Steelers finish in fourth place for the first time since 1988, is that what gets Mike Tomlin canned?
Nah, they just that's not what they do. They just don't fire coaches. It's
I
yeah.
mean, listen,
I
Mike
think
Tomlin's a great
everything,
coach. I
you
just
know.
want to see, I just want to see him somewhere else. I hope he gets fired, or I hope he quits, he resigns, and goes somewhere else. That's really my intention. I just don't like seeing him on the Steelers because he's such a great coach, and they don't deserve him. Um, Man, honestly,
I think him leaving
any
is the
Mike
more
Tomlin
likely
coach team,
scenario.
yes, exactly. And I think that's the worst case scenario for them.
Hmm.
Um, but I think the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to be the bottom dwellers of the AFC North. I think Penny. I think Kenny Pickett is going to show some progression. He's got like a different kind of swagger to his game. He gets the job done. He's not gonna overly wow you with like any like big time throws or something. Like he just gets the job done. You know what I mean? And he's still learning and still developing. Any defense with a Watt brother on it is going to be legit. They're just that's a different breed in that family. Um, and they're always known for. They usually always have like a really good defense, if not great defense. Like on a bad year, their defense is really good. Um, I think it's going to come down to their offense, and I think they're going to feature George Pickens in a very prominent role, and I think he's going to ball out. I just don't think that they're good enough yet to compete with the other three teams that we just covered. And but I do think that they're gonna ruin some people's day come playoff time. They might screw a team out of getting into the playoffs, but I don't think they're making the playoffs. But
For sure.
this division also, I think it's gonna be a lot tougher. But I think this division is also potentially could put out three playoff teams.
Hmm. Yeah, that's where I'm leaning to. I think it's probably more likely that they send the three teams. I think in the AFC East is going to be Bills, Jets, and then in the North, I think it's going to be Bengals, Ravens, Steelers, um, or I don't know. I'm waffling as we speak here. I think it's probably going to be
Man, dude, because
Bengals,
I mean,
Browns,
without
Steelers.
getting too
Hmm.
yeah, because honestly, without getting into much like detail, because we're still gonna go through that too. Um, I mean, I don't really see multiple teams that can make it in the AFC South and the AFC West. Maybe the Chargers might knock one of those teams out
Hmm.
and get in there, but we'll get into that in
Yeah.
the next.
Yeah, I mean you get seven playoff teams. So I think the Steelers, I look at their defense, I think it's going to be another top 5 caliber unit. They got studs at every level. They might have the best defensive backfield in the NFL. You got, Patrick Peterson is still balling, Minka. They got depth. Joey Porter
Oh, I
Jr.
didn't
looks
even
good.
know they got
You
Patrick
know,
Peterson. I
yeah,
didn't
and
know they
he's
got
he's
Patrick
still
Peterson. I mean, interrupted. That was just news to me. He still got it. He's just not. He's not
yes.
what he was, but
I've
he still got it. He can still. He
mhm.
can still hold his own.
Yeah, I feel like you could just like hit shuffle on this division, and any way it shakes out, it's just
Best
that's
of
just
luck.
how it's going to go. I think
It wouldn't be
it's real
surprised.
hard to
It
pick.
wouldn't be
Yeah.
surprising.
hmm
Yeah. Hey, and before
So
we move
who
on,
do
it's
you?
always fuck the
hmm
Steelers. You feel me?
Give
Yeah.
me
Who do
your
I think? What?
order. Give me your order for this division.
My order, man. So honestly, I'm just gonna go on the assumption that Joey B stays healthy. I'm gonna say the Bengals take that division. I think Baltimore is a close second. I think they actually beat Baltimore out for the division later in the season. I think Cleveland comes in third, and then obviously fuck the Steelers. They're bottom dwellers too now. I'm fortunate for Mike Tomlin. I hope he goes somewhere else so I can
hmm
enjoy his coaching.
Yeah. All right. Now we get to move on to my division, the AFC West, and the defending Super Bowl champions are in this division. They have they're tied for the highest over under in the AFC at 11.5, and that of course is the Kansas City Chiefs. Best case scenario is Mahomes, Kelsey is Kelsey. Doesn't matter who else is on that offense. They keep him upright. They do their thing. Their defense is just good enough to keep the best quarterback in the game and they continue their march towards yet another division title, yet another AFC championship, yet another Super Bowl. The worst case scenario is it's Mahomes and Kelsey and no one else, and their defense regresses. Chris Jones doesn't show up till I don't know week 8 or something because he's currently holding out for a new
Oh, he's still
contract.
holding out. Yeah.
Yeah. As of this recording, Tuesday, September 5th, he is not doesn't look like he's going to play week 1. So we'll see how the rest of the season goes. But that's the worst case scenario is there's a Super Bowl winner hangover and they just you never count out Mahomes, but you can count out that defense and it'll be just bad enough to get them eliminated in the conference the title game or the divisional round, whatever it might be. Which way are you leaning?
Man, dude, so like this is what blows my mind, right? So like they finally got Patty Mahomes protected and stuff because they had Orlando Brown last year and they let him go. They let him walk. And to me, I feel like that was a big mistake, and that was Cincinnati's gold mine to keep Joe Burrow upright. So my biggest concern with them is the O line. I don't know how they're gonna look. I haven't seen whoever they replaced Orlando Brown with. You know what I mean? That's still a question mark to me. I haven't seen their O line play. I haven't. I've only been watching the Jets preseason games. Um, but also that the defense is like they bend a lot, but they don't necessarily break, but they do bend a lot, and they do bend a lot, and they do give up points. Um, and ultimately they kind of have to hold their own in the beginning of games, so Pat isn't playing from behind by 30 points every fucking game like that one run. That's not normal, and that shouldn't happen. A quarterback shouldn't have to do that. He's just unhuman like, and he got it done. But you shouldn't have to do that.
So they're, I mean, on their offensive line, they still got Joe Tooney, who's great. They got Creed Humphrey, the young center, who's really good. They signed Donovan Smith from Tampa Bay to play left tackle. I think he's a downgrade from Orlando Brown, but I wasn't that high on Orlando Brown
Yeah,
personally. I mean,
isn't
just
he
from
older though,
watching
right?
them. Yeah, I believe so. Believe he's a older guy, but he's still. I think he's decent, right? He's not going to be uh, huge downgrade on Orlando Brown, who I thought was okay. I think he was a better run blocker than a pass protector. It's just basically what you're betting on is continuity. They're the new Patriots with could be Brady and a bunch of mannequins, and you're basically like, all right, yeah, we'll pencil them in for 10, 11 wins. Uh, I think this division is a mixed bag depending on what you think of the rest of the teams. So I still think they win the division. I can see their defense coming up a little bit short if Chris Jones does not, come up or join the team until late in the season. We've seen how important home field advantage is for this team. It's one of the rare teams that still has like a true home field advantage. So I'm leaning towards their best case scenario because, again, you can't bet against Mahomes and pick against him. So we'll move on to the Chargers. The Chargers, one of my least favorite teams in the NFL. Their over under is 9.5. Their best case scenario is Justin Herbert becomes an MVP caliber quarterback that a lot of people think he is. He takes advantage of all the weapons that he has on offense, and their defense finally becomes half decent. They were pretty bad on defense last year, despite having some blue chippers. And then the worst case scenario is Justin Herbert continues to be a very good quarterback, and their offense keeps scoring because I think it's going to be impossible to keep this offense down, but their defense doesn't catch up, and they're stuck in a bunch of 30 to 35, 27, 28 type games, and they just get in all these shootouts, and they fall short yet again because they're the Chargers. So which way are you leaning?
So history tells us that the Chargers defense always sucks ass. Uh, that defense has failed Phillip Rivers. It's failed Justin Herbert and their coaches. Like even in his rookie season, he had them in a lot of games they should have won, and the defense just fucking like, oh, here you go. Here's a tutty. Here you go. You guys scored a win. Here, walk on by. Come follow me this way. That's what their defense does. They fold when it matters the most. Um, I still got to see a little bit more from Justin Herbert as well. They did get him new weapons. I think they drafted Quentin Johnston, right? Big body receiver. I'm interested to see how their chemistry is and how they ball. Mike Williams got to stay healthy, and then you got over reliable on Keenan Allen. I don't think it's the offense that the Chargers got to worry about. I think that their biggest problem is always their defense, and that's worst case scenario is their defense fails them, like history tells us that they do. And I think I agree with you on the best case scenario is that Justin Herbert plays an MVP caliber ball for them and to make the playoffs and make a deep run. But I don't. I see him progressing and showing progressions. I don't see him playing in that caliber yet.
Yeah, I mean they did bring in Kellen Moore, who people can talk much as they want about the Cowboys and their failings, but they almost always have had a very good offense. He's made Dak Prescott look pretty good at times, at least in terms of numbers. I mean, Dak puts up huge numbers, regardless of what you think of him as an actual quarterback or not. So you got to give credit to Kellen
Yeah.
Moore for that. I think he's going to unlock Justin Herbert. Again, that offense has never been the issue. Maybe the offensive line is a concern, just like it always is with this team, because they got to protect Herbert and keep him upright. I think their biggest
Didn't
issue
they
is
lose their?
Brandon's. Mhm.
Didn't they lose like their starting? I think it was left or right tackle last year, like out the gate, like either in preseason or right before. Like Slater, their draft pick.
Yeah,
That
they
was a
lost
big
him
thing
a
last
few
year
weeks
too
into
for
the
the line.
season. I want to say like tore his
Yeah, I didn't know
bicep or his
exactly when it
pec or
was. It was
something.
early.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was
and they
early,
had a
but
bunch of
that's a huge
injuries.
blow to already question.
Mhm.
Yeah, that was a huge blow to already questionable line. So yeah, continue. I
Mhm.
forgot.
No, you're right. They had a bunch of injuries on the offensive line. Of course, that was the big thing. I think for me, I mean, I always text in the group chat that Brandon Staley is a donkey. He just constantly makes bad decisions on fourth down. He
Every week,
gambles every week. There's one moment where I'm just like, what is this guy doing, man? Like, do you not know the quarterback that you have and the weapons that you have? And he's like,
right?
using Austin Eckler, who's a great running back, but he's using him as like a power back in short yardage, just doing a lot of weird things and like gambling when he doesn't have to, right? So I think he's the
Yeah,
biggest thing holding them back. And I think that's what's going to keep them from like seriously challenging for the division. I do think they're a playoff team considering all the talent that they have, on both sides of the ball. So I am leaning, towards the maybe not best case scenario, but just pretty close to the best case scenario. So next
yeah.
is
I honestly,
yeah, go ahead.
hold on. I think Staley is one of those guys who's a better as a defensive coordinator than he is a
Mhm.
head coach. But like sometimes, like you said, I be watching games like, yo, who the fuck gave this guy a job? Like a big time like job that makes decisions. Like, 'cause this is not smart.
Yeah, there's some head scratchers. I think a lot of people have him as one of
He's
the early coaches fired, and Kellen Moore takes over and all that. So
yeah,
we'll
yeah.
see how
And for
that
those who
goes.
don't know, from week 1 to week 17, Khaled Donkey of the Week, Staley. That was Donkey of the Week all season long. And honestly, we all backed it up because he did look like a big ass donkey.
Yeah, and they got a tough schedule. They have they're 29th in the strength of schedule rankings, so that's tough. I mean, part of it is a division and playing the Chiefs and all that, but yeah, it's not great. Next is the Denver Broncos. So last year they were one of the worst teams in the NFL, thanks to Nathaniel Hackett and Russell Wilson looking washed. They hire Sean Payton, or they trade for Sean Payton, and betting on him, overhauling the organization. I think they have a new ownership group too, so there's a lot of change in Denver. Best case scenario is Russell Wilson is the guy that we saw in Seattle for a long time. Russell hustle and bustle doing his thing. He has a I don't want to say he has that many weapons. I think Albert O looks pretty good at tight end. Their running backs, depending on the health of
Nah,
Javante
they traded
Williams.
him.
They traded
Didn't
Albert
they
O?
just trade Albert O? Man, I'm pretty sure they might have even traded him to the Eagles. I gotta look this up now.
No, they traded Noah Fant. Let me see. I'm double checking. Oh yeah, you're right. Oh,
Nah, yeah, they traded him to the Eagles,
okay. I'm talking
and they traded
about
all their fast tight ends.
yeah.
But
So
they
I
did
guess
trade Noah Fant
Greg
last year to the
Dulcich.
Saints, to not to the Seahawks. Yeah, Greg
They did.
Dulcich,
They
hey,
did.
he's hey man, he low key saved my fantasy a few weeks last season. I ain't even gonna lie to you. So I ain't got nothing bad to say about him.
All right. Well, so their best case scenario is their defense continues to be like a top five caliber unit, like it was last year. They have a lot of talent there, and their offense is just good enough with Sean Payton calling the plays and designing things. He's one of the better coaches in the NFL. Worst case scenario is Russell Wilson is washed up. They start Jarrett Stidham, who is okay. I think he's just good enough. Their offensive weapons don't keep up. Their defense falls apart like it did late in the year, and they finished last in the division. Who do you know? Which way are you leaning here?
Man. So I got some shit to say about the Broncos. I do think they're in a lot better hands because they got Sean Payton. But I do feel like Nathaniel Hackett was sabotaged in Denver. I don't know how legitimate it was, but I read somewhere that they hired Nathaniel Hackett because they thought they were going to get Aaron Rodgers last year or whatever. So I think he was just a sitting duck at coach. I don't really hold that to him. I think Russ is ass. I think Russ has been washed. Um, but like specifically Sean Payton, mind your fucking business and stay in your motherfucking lane, bro. You got a whole ass washed ass quarterback to worry about. Don't be worried about my team. We see y'all in week 5. We're gonna give you the business again, just like last year. But this time we're gonna score points. So, but yeah, I don't
Kuz
know.
is
The
referring
Denver
to.
Broncos. It depends.
Mhm.
Yeah, you can let them know. You let them know.
So Kuz is referring to Sean Payton calling. I think we want to say like Nathaniel Hackett calling it one of the worst head coaching jobs of all time, something like that. Basically, taking a lot of unnecessary shots at a guy that was in over his head. He had a quarterback that he you know looked washed up, and yeah, you're right. They did think they were going to get Aaron Rodgers, and they almost kind of settled for second best, or what they thought was second best with Russell Wilson. They gave up a ton of picks to get him instead of Rodgers. And we've seen, if you watch Hard Knocks, how close of a relationship that Hackett and Rodgers had. So it makes sense that they would want to keep those two together. But now they're together in New York. So I'm
That's
leaning
right. And it's about to be a
towards.
great season.
Yeah, I don't think Russell Wilson is the same guy. I don't think he has that same explosiveness. I don't think they have the weapons. I know Jerry Judy is he's not on IR or anything, but I don't think he plays for a while. They already lost Tim
Nah, man,
Patrick
but he can't
again.
stay healthy, dude, and that's my guy. That's my guy. He
Hmm.
can't stay healthy, bro, right now. It's just
Yeah,
like the only
he
one
has
staying
issues with
healthy is the one that they
drops.
said would never make it in the NFL.
Hmm.
Yeah, but I'm saying the only well, out of that trio of Alabama wide receivers, one of them is in jail, one of them is in prison. The other one can't stay healthy, and the only one that's doing anything is the one person they're like, oh, he's too small to play. He'll never make it in the NFL. He's gonna get fucking smacked. Like, guess what, bro? My dog balling, but it just sucks for the Eagles. Shout out Seabass,
Yep, and that's Devonte Smith. Yeah, shout out Seabass.
Devontae
Yeah,
Smith.
I'm
Yeah,
leaning towards. I don't think Russell is the same guy. Jarrett Stidham is okay, but I don't think they have the right weapons around him to make him a good a productive quarterback. I think he'll put up some numbers and all that, but I do think he takes over the
yeah,
starting job at some point. But I do have the Broncos finishing last in this division.
yeah. But
And
that
speaking of
defense,
last,
honestly, I
mm,
can't put them last specifically because their defense will carry them to better than last alone, no matter how bad Russ
okay,
plays. Like that defense is
well,
legit because you know what I mean,
mhm.
real deal. But I, this next game is going to be very interesting because it's you know it's
It's
a
my
homework talk.
boys.
I love homework talk. I love
Homer
homework
talk,
talk.
yeah. Um, I'm realistic though. You know me. I keep it real. So next,
Yeah,
of course,
a little unrealistic sometimes.
are the Las Vegas Raiders. Their current over under is 7.5 games. Most people have them finishing last in this division. I've seen projections as low as 3 to 4 wins, which I think is kind of crazy. Best case scenario is
That's hella
Jimmy G.
disrespectful. That's hella disrespectful. To
Yeah, three,
like
four
three
wins is a
wins is
little.
hella
That's crazy.
disrespectful. I think they're. I think that's 3 wins that because they probably think Jimmy G gonna get hurt by week 2. But
Exactly. So the best case
but yeah,
scenario
go ahead.
is, Jimmy G stays healthy. He's good enough. He knows this system. He has a ton of weapons around him. He has, probably maybe the best receiver in the league. I don't know how you feel about him and Justin Jefferson, but they got Devontae Adams, Hunter Renfro, Jacoby Myers, who's a very good slot receiver. They have a young tight end, so there's some question marks there. They have the returning rushing champion and Josh Jacobs, who got his new contract. Offensive line looks, pretty good. So they have the offensive weapons. Best case scenario on defense is that this unit takes a step forward. There's a lot of question marks at linebacker, but their defensive backfield should be okay. And they have, one of the best defensive players in the league in Max Crosby. Chandler Jones is maybe washed up. I don't know. But again, best case scenario is that this is maybe like a top 15 defense and it's good enough to keep the offense in games. Worst case scenario is Jimmy G gets hurt like he usually does. They have to rely on Brian Hoyer or Aiden O'Connell, who looked good in preseason, but he's a young quarterback.
Hey,
And the
Farva.
defense, yeah, that's right. They call him Farva from Super Troopers. And the defense is another bottom five unit like it has been for the past, I don't know, 20 years. So the way I'm gonna answer. Actually, I'll let you answer first. Which way do you see this going?
Man, first of all, if the Raiders end up with a top 15 defense after Derek Carr left, that'd be mad disrespectful to Derek Carr. No cap. Um, Man, this team is a toss up for me because like they got so many different they got like a different flow going on right now. Like the defense is still kind of nice. I think your weakest link is probably like your corners. They're not they're good, but like I feel like that's something that you guys need to be drafting soon. But like that defensive line is nice. Max Crosby's nice. Um, Man, it's Jimmy G's got to stay healthy, and I think it's a shot. You guys drafted who I thought was the best tight end in the draft, and Michael Mayer in the second round. Like I think he's going to be a stud. I think I think he'll be better than Darren Waller. He's just not going to be as fast. 'Cause Darren Waller's a problem. That boy is fast when he's healthy and he's on the field. He can catch and he's fast. But I think Michael Mayer is going to be that
Mm-hmm.
safety blanket. Um, Boy's got short hands. He's just not fast. He's a tight end, bro. He's like a legitimate tight end. He's not no hybrid
Mm-hmm.
like Darren Waller was. Like he's like a throwback tight end.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know,
He's
man.
he's
It's
a big
definitely a
boy.
team I'm interested in watching. It's definitely a team I'm interested in watching. I don't even feel confident putting either Denver or them in fourth place. I think it's gonna be a dogfight between the two teams, and it all depends on if Jimmy G can stay healthy and like if like Sean Payton can squeeze whatever he can out of Russ because I
Mm-hmm.
think Russ is gonna shit the bed again this year, and then Sean Payton's gonna be like, "Yo, you're out of here. I don't care how much money you're making."
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, I think there's a
So,
lot
but I
of
don't know.
variance with both of these teams. I could see either one finishing last. Like if you told me the Raiders win
Yeah,
6 games, I'd be like, yeah, I see a path to it. You tell me they win 10-11.
Uh,
I see a path to it too. They have one of the toughest schedules in the league. I think they have the second hardest schedule. So that it's brutal. That's the thing. So yeah, it's a lot of
mhm.
variance. I'm kind of leaning more towards 6-7 wins, just because of the schedule, and I don't trust Jimmy G as a quarterback. But again, if they win 10, I wouldn't be too shocked either. So we'll move on to the
Yeah.
AFC South. I think this is another tough division to predict in terms of the
Oh,
winner, depending
do
on
we
how
do
you
the
feel.
hold
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah,
hold
go
on real
ahead. Give
quick
me your
before we
order for
do
the
that?
AFC West.
Yeah, okay. I just making sure that we did it or not. I couldn't remember.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so for the AFC West, I mean until I'm proven otherwise, Chiefs are gonna win that division. Chargers in second place, and man, it's really a toss up between the Raiders and Denver. But I'm
Mm-hmm.
on Homer talk, so I'm gonna put the Raiders in third, and we'll put the Broncos in fourth because that's what they get for worrying about my team instead of their own business.
Yeah, I'm leading that way too. The AFC South, yeah, it's a tough division to predict just because of these teams are weird. They're always beating up on each other in weird ways. I think the clear favorite here is the Jacksonville Jaguars. After their playoff victory last year, their over under is 9.5. Best case scenario is Trevor Lawrence becomes a top, I don't know, 5 quarterback in the NFL. He has Calvin Ridley and Christian Kirk and a bunch of weapons. Their defense takes a step forward. Worst case scenario is, there were some smoke and mirrors last year. They were 9-8, and I think the worst case scenario is they stay around that range and they don't take that step forward, because I think they're good enough with enough talent to be above 500, but maybe not a dominant type team. So which way are you leaning for Jacksonville?
They made the playoffs at 9-8 last year.
Well, they won the division because it was an awful division. They hosted a playoff game.
Oh, damn, it's one of those. That's true. Yeah, man. So I think this is going to be an exciting team to watch, man. Got Doug Peterson over there. They started last year. They started to look like they were starting to put it all together. I think ultimately, best case scenario for this team is that Trevor Lawrence shows out and he balls out and he turns out to play like the quarterback we all predicted him to be, and like all the big problem that we all predicted him to be as a prospect and while he was at Clemson. Um, Calvin Ridley's finally playing. He missed all last season, degenerate stuff. You know what I mean? It happens to the best of us. But I think people forget just how good Calvin Ridley was, and Calvin Ridley's going to be a problem this year as well. And honestly, I still don't think he deserved the money, but Christian Kirk surprised a lot of people, including me last season, with his production. Um, Travis Etienne is going to be back and healthy. Like it's going to be a fun team to watch, and I think they get 10 or 11 wins, and I think they win it. I think I'm going to go ahead and start this part of it. I think they win this division because the rest of the teams are
Yeah,
unproven and they all got like young quarterbacks, and then you got Tannehill.
yeah. I'm leaning that way as well. So speaking of Tannehill and the Tennessee Titans, their current over under is 7.5. I think a lot of that has to do with them having the best coach in the division, one of the best coaches in the NFL. So the best case scenario is,
Hmm.
their defense is still a really good unit. They still have that powerful rushing attack. They're just good enough on offense to stay competitive. And of course, Mike Vrabel continues to be one of the best coaches in the league, and they challenge for this division. Worst case is Ryan Tannehill's washed, Derrick Henry is washed. They don't have many other weapons outside of that, and they just become, continue to be like a mediocre 6, 7, 8 win team, and just stay in that range. Which way are you leaning?
Um, yeah, man. Honestly, feed Derrick Henry the rock. Mike Vrabel comes from playing from Belichick and the Belichick coaching tree, and like Mike Vrabel himself was a dog on defense. I hated to go up against that guy. In his prime as a Jets fan, I saw a lot of him. It was not fun. And their defense is something I'll never worry about. Like I feel like that's something he's instilled over at Tennessee. At Tennessee, they're always going to have a good to great defense. Ultimately. It's going to be the quarterback play from the Titans for me because and Traylon Burks. They got Traylon Burks. They got talent on that team, man. But the quarterback play, you already know how I feel about Tannehill. I think Tannehill, like if you force the game into his hand, he's gonna choke. Like you take away the run game, and you'll almost certainly beat the Titans because Tannehill is not a good quarterback. He's manageable, but he's not a good quarterback. Um, Malik Willis still unproven, still unknown for the most part. He's shown flashes. He's shown some like bad plays, whatever. And then you got what's his face that they just drafted that's afraid of the milk.
Will
Levis,
Levis.
Will Levis. Yeah, Levis.
Yeah.
So, if I'm a defender, I'm bringing milk out there, bro. You know what I'm saying? I'll throw milk in his face. You know what I'm saying? I'm that guy. I'll sneak a little on the field and be, oh, here you go, bro. Scare him a little bit. You know what I mean? But that's to me, that's the worst case scenario. Best case scenario, the defense puts that team on the back along with King Henry, like they always do, and they limp to the playoffs. But
Mhm.
I think they finished second in this division.
Yeah, and we forgot
Actually,
to
you know what?
mention
I'm gonna
DeAndre
take that back. I'm gonna
Hopkins.
save. I'm gonna save. Oh yeah, and oh yeah. I honestly forgot they signed them, but I probably forgot because I don't know who's gonna get them the ball. Um,
Yeah,
but I'll say
exactly.
I'm gonna take back what I said about the Titans finish second for later because we'll go through the other teams. The other teams are exciting too. It's a good season of football,
All
man. A
right.
lot of these teams are like invigorated with young, good talent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and speaking of young talent, the Indianapolis Colts, they are current over under is 6.5. Best case scenario is Anthony Richardson is dynamic, he's exciting, and he revitalizes this offense. Jonathan Taylor comes back after 4 weeks, and they form a great rushing attack with those two guys, and Michael Pittman gets the ball and all that stuff. And on defense, they have some blue chippers, DeForest Buckner, Shaquille Leonard, etc. They stay competitive. Worst case scenario is Anthony Richardson has a typical rookie quarterback season with a lot of mistakes. He doesn't have a lot of experience as a starting quarterback, and he just isn't good enough to keep them competitive. And they just, I think, end up probably back in the top five. Which way are you leaning for this team?
Um, Man, dude. So I'm actually excited for this team. Excuse me. I'm excited to see Anthony Richardson because, in my opinion, in college, his biggest flaw was his accuracy. Dude, kid oozes potential. He's got the talent. He can run. He's got a fucking absolute rifle of an arm. It's crazy. So, and they got a lot of young talent on that team. But it's gonna be interesting and fun to see that team play. I'm just we'll get to the Texans first before I make like a final assumption because it's like I said, young talent
Yeah, I
oozing all
got you.
over the NFL this year.
Yeah, I loved Anthony Richardson. I mean, like you said, his accuracy, some of that was mechanics. A lot of people talked about just fixing his footwork and that kind of stuff. People are excited about him working with Shane Steichen, the former Eagles offense coordinator. They think he can do for Richardson what he did for Jalen Hurts, but of course that was in year two, year three of Jalen Hurts, so it's a little bit of a different situation. I'm leaning towards they're fun and exciting, but he's a young, inexperienced
But they're not
quarterback
there
that
yet.
makes a lot of mistakes. And they, like I said, they
Yeah,
have a lot of blue chippers on defense. Shaquille
they
Leonard,
do.
what's his name, Zaire Franklin, all these guys. So they have the talent on defense, but I think they're in for another, again, like I said, top five type season. Top five in the draft type season. Um, Last, maybe least, we'll see in the AFC. The Houston Texans, their over under is 5.5. Best case scenario is CJ Stroud, who was projected to be the most pro ready quarterback of the this class, looks pro ready, and he doesn't have too many weapons, but he has a pretty good running back in Dameon Pierce, and he takes some steps forward. He becomes a competent NFL quarterback at the very least. On defense, they have D'Amico Ryan's running the show as their head coach, and he's able to revitalize this defense and bring some attitude and toughness to a team that usually has pretty good defenses. They've had some pretty good units, with J.J. Watt and things back in the day. But worst case scenario is C.J. Stroud is not who we thought he was, or at least he's not in his rookie season, which is expected. because he doesn't have too many weapons, and then the defense is just not very good, and that's fine because again, it's they're they had almost the number one pick in the draft last year, so it's understandable that it'll take some time to rebuild. So, which way are you leaning for the Houston Texans?
So, um, D'Amico Ryan's coming from that 49ers coaching tree and that Shanahan coaching tree. Um, I think this defense is going to be better than a lot of people expect. Especially like I think Houston had one of the more impressive drafts this year. So not only did they take C.J. Stroud, but they traded back up to number 3 to draft Will Anderson, who's an absolute dog. So this team, I think they kind of fall in the category with the Colts. They're going to be fun to watch, and depending on the development of C.J. Stroud, they're either going to be fun to watch and but like be bottom dwellers and have a top 5 draft pick, or he's just gonna they're gonna have a ball. They'll probably have like 8 to 9 wins in his first year. I'd be really impressed if they had more than that. But me personally, I'm biased, but I personally thought Bryce Young was the more pro-ready quarterback. But I just think C.J. Stroud has the bigger potential and obviously the size and the cannon. He has the higher ceiling for sure.
Yeah. So I mean, honestly, I think the best case scenario for them is to be competitive, but not to win too many games. So similar to
Yeah,
the
because
the
they still
Bears
got to
last
build that
year.
team.
Exactly, exactly. So you want them, to be in every game, but maybe end up with like, 5, 6 wins, 4 wins, something like that, just so they're in the mix. You want
Yeah,
CJ Stroud to
top
stay
10 pick at
healthy.
least.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah,
So
there you
they
got.
are going to be. I am interested to watch, of course, CJ Stroud and Will Anderson. So it's one of those teams I'm going to like bookmark as one to watch, like check out the
Yeah,
highlights and stuff, especially after the
100%.
fact, because I don't think they have too many primetime games. So we won't, and I'm a red zone guy, so I don't think I'll be
Nah,
able
they're
to
not
see
there
too much
yet.
of them.
They're not there yet.
Nah, yeah. So it'll be fun to watch. I like D'Amico Ryans. He's a great coordinator. If I was hoping the Raiders would take a look at him when he was available a couple years back. I think he passed on some head coaching jobs to stay in San Francisco. So anyway, who is or give me your order for this division?
Um, okay, hold on. I already forgot who's in the division. Okay. So obviously, I'm gonna go with Jacksonville at number 1, like I said originally. I'll go with Tennessee number 2, and honestly, like I can't definitively tell you who's gonna finish third and fourth between those two teams. I think there's gonna be exciting teams. They're just not there yet, and they're both gonna have
Mhm.
low number wins. Like, but I put Texans there because I like Will Anderson
Mhm.
better, so I would be a little biased. But it's really a toss up between those two teams who finished last.
Yeah, I'll go Jacksonville, Tennessee, Houston. I think because I'm sorry, Indianapolis, because I think they have more talent on defense and they have a little more veteran
Mm,
presence on defense.
blue
Um,
chippers.
yeah, Blue Chippers, and then the Texans last. But again, like you said, it's going to be a bit of a toss up. So yeah, this was fun. Thanks for coming on, Kuz. We appreciate your bold takes and your opinions. I know you're going to be
I
going.
have one.
Yeah, go ahead.
I
You got
have
one more
one
thing?
more if you let me.
Yes, please.
All right, so I'm predicting that by the trade deadline this year, one of Mike Evans or Devontae Adams will be a Jet.
Well, for my sake, I'm hoping it's Mike Evans. I'll say that. Yeah. So again, thanks for
Right.
coming
I
on. We
mean, look,
appreciate you
yeah,
guys
it don't matter.
listening.
Yeah, yeah. I'm so
Yeah.
glad
So
to be back on a podcast. So, holla at your boy, fellas and ladies.
yeah, we'll do this again sometime for sure. So again, yeah, thank you for coming on. Thank you guys for rocking with us. Make sure to check us out on all the major social media platforms at 4040 Vision Pod. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And of course, make sure to leave us a review and subscribe wherever you're listening to this podcast. Thanks, y'all.